Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight and Wight Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. August really has flown by, but we have made some changes at Millbrook House, the first of which is reception. Previously, as you walked into reception, for those able to, the back of the computer screen was the only thing visible, not Chris's smiling face. We've moved the desks around to change this. Secondly, the little equipment room, which is on the left after reception, was too small. With the big digital screen readers now becoming so much more popular, there simply wasn't enough space in this room to be able to try them, and we were having to lift them into other rooms to allow people to try them. So we've moved Susan into this small office, so she's still on the first floor, able to meet volunteers and members, but we've moved the equipment office back into the back office where Susan and Finance Karen used to be. This means you need to walk through the kitchen to get to the equipment room. However, it is a much larger room, much more private, and everything is able to be easily displayed. With just one more short week before we return to full steam in September, wishing everybody, hopefully, a sunny, lovely time. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight and Wight Sense.
There is this week's charity news, 23rd of August 2024. All activities have now stopped for August and will commence week commencing the 2nd of September.
Events happening in September. Our Living Well with Sight Loss course is on the 6th of September at Millbrook House between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. If you'd like to join us, please call the office and book a space. Carers or family members are very welcome to come along with you.
Our open day to be held at the Riverside Centre is on Tuesday the 24th of September. Please put it in your diary. More details will follow shortly.
We are now taking names for our 2025 Warner's Short Break holiday at Norton Grange, Yarmouth. It's going to be between the 7th and the 9th of April. If you would like more information, please find information in our recent newsletter or call Susan on 522 205.
Our monthly 100 club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Businesses despair over Council's A-Board money-making scheme. Island businesses are suffering enough. That's the key message to the Isle of Wight Council as the local authority tries to introduce a £225 charge for local businesses placing A-boards outside their premises. Members of the Isle of Wight Council's Licensing Committee recently voted in favour of regulating the placing of A-boards on the public highway, i.e. the pavement, by requiring each business to hold a permit. Initially, it was only going to affect A-boards over 1.5 metres high, but will now include all sizes. Currently, no permission is required to place an A-board on the highway, but Island Roads stewards have powers to require the removal or relocation of any such boards that create congestion or are placed in such a way so as to cause a nuisance or a potential hazard to pedestrians or motorists. To the shock and horror of businesses, the Council is soon to demand the sum of £225 per permit in what has been marked a money-making scheme by many. Newport Business Association, which is opposed to the new levy, says it is concerned the £225 charge will be an unnecessary burden on some small retailers who are already finding life challenging post-COVID. Andrew Tapsell, chair of Newport Business Association, has said in a letter to the local authority, whilst some businesses have obvious shop fronts and signage, others occupy small buildings off the general highways, and some are restricted by building regulations and unable to erect signage. These businesses currently rely on A-frames to publicise their presence. We feel a better approach would be for the Council to scrap the proposal and instead offer all businesses official guidance and clarity on the positioning of A-boards via your website, and for stronger policing of the A-boards throughout the island by island roads. Information for the public on how to report a potentially dangerous, annoying or hazardous A-board would also be welcomed. Ryde Business Association also appears to be opposed to the plans, stating that the plan is another money maker at the cost of small local businesses. In Shanklin, local business The Copper Kettle says that it was only last year that the Isle of Wight Council demanded an increase in the public liability requirement from £5 million to £10 million, resulting in increased premiums. They say they may have survived COVID, but they won't survive the council. Due to the change in the size of the A-board included within the proposed permit scheme, a short period of consultation has now opened. Anyone wishing to make a comment should email licensing@iow.gov.uk by Saturday the 31st of August this year. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson has said, "It is important to reiterate that this is not a public consultation, as there is no direct change for the public to be concerned about. As you can appreciate, the Council needs to prioritise contacting and responding to those directly affected. This is a consultation period, not a decision, and no plans have been decided yet. This will go through full Council later this year for the final decision. This will take into account the responses we have received. The Council can confirm that we have not only made contact with business through the Chamber, but also business associations too. This is to ensure that a cross-section of businesses from around the island have been consulted. What is apparent from the comments we have received so far is that officers have a clear indication of the views the business community has towards this proposal."
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Ventnor Councillor Ian Bond calls for more dog-friendly beaches. A Ventnor Town Councillor is calling on the Isle of Wight Council to use its current review of beach restrictions to make the island a more attractive place for local dog owners and for the many visitors who travel with their pets. Councillor Ian Bond has tabled a motion for the Town Council's 12th of August meeting, which asks the Island Council to look at the changes made in Cornwall since 2020. Councillor Bond said, "Cornwall County Council reviewed all its beach restrictions in 2020, which had previously been similar to the islands, with many beaches restricted May through September. After its largest ever public consultation, almost all Cornish beaches are now restricted for July and August and between 10 and 1800 hours only. The new Cornish restrictions were supported by more than 2 in 3 responses to its consultation across the county and have remained popular, having been retained after a further review 2 years ago." Councillor Bond said, "The review of local public space protection orders presents a tremendous opportunity to make the island a more attractive place to live or visit with a dog. We should restrict our beaches during the busy school holiday months only and allow dog owners to use them during early morning and evening, when they are otherwise often empty. Since the Isle of Wight Council restrictions lapsed earlier this year, in Ventnor we have seen many dog owners using our beach at quiet times this summer. They have been responsible, and having dogs on our beach really hasn't caused us any significant problems for our summer season.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. 8-week closure of main road into Sandown to cause disruption to motorists. A main road in and out of Sandown is to be closed for more than 8 weeks from the start of September to allow Network Rail to remove one of 2 railway bridges that span across the carriageway. It's been confirmed that Avenue Road will be closed in both directions between Tamar Close and Perone Way underneath the railway bridge between the 2nd of September and 31st of October to enable works to the railway infrastructure. Network Rail is working to remove the disused bridge over Avenue Road, as well as renewing the in-use bridge that carries the Island Line tracks. Scaffolding is to be erected around the structure to enable it to be repainted, resulting in a complete road closure. This closure means traffic heading in and out of the seaside town of Sandown to and from Ryde and Brading will have to divert via Yaverland. Heavy goods vehicles that are unable to use Yaverland will have to divert via Arreton. Furthermore, between 2300 hours on Friday the 27th of September and 5 hours on Monday the 30th September, Moreton Road and Perone Way will also be closed to enable a crane to move in to remove the disused bridge. Access under the bridge will be maintained for pedestrians during the bulk of the work, save for when the bridge is being lifted out of place. Network Rail is also altering the electric rail that powers the trains around Sandown Station.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Isle of Wight tomato farmer stars in new M&S Farm to Food Hall advert. Isle of Wight farmer Brian Morley of APS Produce recently starred in M&S's latest Farm to Food Hall campaign alongside Tom Kerridge. Founded in 1986 on the Isle of Wight, APS Produce has been growing M&S's Isle of Wight tomatoes in Arreton Valley for nearly 20 years, with over 40 types of tomatoes grown, each one specially selected once ripe to give the perfect taste. In the advert, Brian explains why the Isle of Wight is the perfect climate for growing tomatoes, as one of the sunniest places in the UK. Brian also showcases how APS Produce's tomato plants are grown using biodegradable twine, which is chopped for a bespoke composting process at the end of the season. The compost is then used as fertilizer in soils in APS organic tomato crops, therefore improving soil fertility. Brian Morley of APS Produce said, "We're incredibly proud to be a feature in the M&S Farm to Food Hall campaign. It's been an amazing experience working with Tom and the team to showcase the hard work we put in to ensure we provide the best quality tomatoes possible. We pride ourselves in producing the best and most sustainable products for M&S customers and are so honoured to be part of this campaign. Jane Phillips, M&S Agriculture, said, "We like to say we have a relentless focus on quality at M&S, and working with Brian and the team, so do our suppliers. We're incredibly proud to have worked with them for nearly 20 years and look forward to carrying on delivering the best products for customers. We source a range of tomato varieties from the APS produce team, from Pink Oishi to Tiger and San Marzano, and I'd encourage everyone to try them if they haven't before." Farm to Food Hall is fronted by Michelin-starred chef Tom Kerridge and is the retailer's biggest ever marketing campaign. It follows Kerridge as he visits the retailer's select farms across the UK to tell the stories behind a range of products. M&S works with over 9,000 select farmers across the UK to deliver delicious food produced to the highest possible sourcing standards for its 30 million customers.
This is Chris, reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Renewed backlash for revised Newport housing development. Revised plans for a 12-house development on Newport's Landscape Lane have been met with renewed backlash. The latest in a long line of application proposals from Mrs. C. Ferns of Cotton Trust has attracted a raft of criticism, ranging from concerns centred on the environment, noise, and privacy to those relating to transport, safety, affordability, traffic, and flooding. Mrs. Fern's updated plan was submitted on June the 27th and includes a couple of 2-bedroom bungalows and 1 3-bedroom bungalow. Also featured are a couple of 4-bedroom detached houses, 3 detached houses with 3 bedrooms each, a couple of 2-bedroom semi-detached houses, and a couple of 3-bedroom detached houses. Other updates include footpath provision to Staplers Road, a different layout, altered roof forms, the removal of garages, and greater turning space for parked vehicles. According to consultant town planner Phil Salmon, Mrs. Fern's agent, the development would be built on Grade 3 agricultural land, defined by Natural England as good to moderate quality agricultural land. A total of 27 public objecting comments have been posted on the Isle of Wight Council's planning portal, most of which are from Newport residents. A spokesperson for Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council commented, "There are serious concerns for both traffic and pedestrians regarding this development. Landscape Lane is not as well used as the application states, and the proposal is to change this from a narrow, single-track rural lane into an access to a housing development." Although guidance and comments are still outstanding from Island Roads for this application, the entrances to this lane are local black spots and have experienced many near misses. Edward Nicholson, Chair of Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, CPRE, Isle of Wight, added, "The site is remote from the town centre and poorly situated for active travel, since there are no safe cycling or wheeling routes in the area." CPRE Isle of Wight advocates for urban sites being rebuilt for housing rather than towns growing into surrounding farmland. Island Roads Highways representation, submitted on July the 10th, did not object to the latest development plan, but outlined conditions regarding highway works and a construction management plan.
This is Brian reading an article from the Ireland Echo. Battle begins as voting opens for Europe's #1 island. The public is being urged to get behind the Isle of Wight in a bid to win the title of Most Desirable Island in a prestigious travel magazine. Wanderlust, widely recognised as one of the most widely read travel magazines in the UK and with a huge global online following, has included the Isle of Wight in the 2024 Wanderlust Reader Travel Awards category of Most Desirable Island in Europe. It is the first time that the Isle of Wight has been nominated in the highly respected Wanderlust Awards. Over 100,000 votes are expected to be cast in the competition, which means that every vote for the Isle of Wight is crucial. The Isle of Wight is up against some stiff competition from 23 destinations in the category of Most Desirable Island in Europe, including Orkney, Tenerife and Jersey. Voting in the competition is online and will be open until the 18th of October. Those who take the time to enter may also be eligible to win one of 8 incredible prizes worth over £70,000, including a 10-day Vietnam tour plus flights for 2, an 8-day Yukon Northern Lights adventure for 2, and a 4-night holiday for 2 to Puglia, including flights. Explaining what the win would mean for the Isle of Wight, Lou Collins, Visit Isle of Wight marketing manager, says, "A win in the Wanderlust Reader Awards would be a fantastic opportunity to continue to raise the profile of the Isle of Wight to readers of one of the most important travel publications in the UK and across the world. I really hope that devotees of the Isle of Wight will get behind the island and help us to get to the #1 spot in this amazing competition. And who knows, somebody reading this and goes on to vote might even win one of those fabulous prizes." To vote for the Isle of Wight in the 2024 Wanderlust Readers Competition, go to https://wanderlusttravelawards.com/.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. A British sailing first for the Royal Solent Yacht Club. Last Saturday, the 17th of August, marked the official opening of the annual Folk Boat Week, hosted and organised by the Royal Solent Yacht Club, with 39 of the 3-man folk boats from England's south coast racing in the Western Solent throughout the week. However, the welcoming party for competing crews held at the Royal Solent Yacht Club on Saturday evening was more than just a social regatta event, with the RSYC being presented with the most coveted trophy in folk boat racing, the Nordic Folk Boat Gold Cup. The Gold Cup has been raced annually since 1963, with 1 year dropped at the height of the COVID pandemic. And unusually for a yacht racing trophy, other than the America's Cup, the cup is awarded to the triumphant boat's yacht club, not the boat's skipper and crew. At this year's Gold Cup, held in Halmstad on Sweden's west coast, 100 kilometres north of Copenhagen, 52 teams from Denmark, Estonia, Germany, Finland and Sweden, and 5 boats from the UK raced hard between the 6th and the 12th of July. Historically, the event has been dominated by the Danes, with 38 Gold Cup victories. Germany has taken the trophy 9 times, British folk boats came close to Gold Cup glory in 2017, but have never won until 2024. Going into the final day of racing at this year's Nordic Folk Boat Gold Cup, any of 4 boats could have clinched the prize, but folk boat GBR 808 Isabella, racing under the Royal Solent Yacht Club Burgee with crew John Wolfe at helm, Ed Donald, Royal Solent member, and Cameron Tweedle, prevailed, taking first place overall to the huge delight of the British folk boat fleet at Halmstad. At the official presentation of the Gold Cup on Saturday evening, Ed Donald was represented by his daughters, Bella and Maddie, and by Lymington-based boat builders Andy Baker of Baker Marine, who built Isabella. The presentation was made to Martin Collinson, Commodore of the RSYC, by Ed's daughters, alongside the President of the UK Folk Boat Association, Graham Coulter, and the Chairman, Kim Morley. As Coulter commented during the handover, nobody knows how long the Gold Cup will remain in Yarmouth, but finally wresting the prodigious trophy from continental Europe is a start.
This is Chris reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Crime Stoppers launches new campaign to help to keep Isle of Wight homes safe from burglary. Crime Stoppers has launched a new campaign designed to help people reduce the risk of their home being burgled. The charity is also calling on anyone who knows about those involved in burglaries, selling stolen goods, or targeting the vulnerable to contact them anonymously. In 2003 to 2024, there were over 4,500 residential burglaries recorded across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Some simple measures that will keep your home more secure include always keeping your house and garage doors locked, fitting secure locks to your shed, and if you are storing expensive bikes, to keep them locked and secured to the floor, fitting window locks, putting indoor and outdoor lights on a timer, and fitting external lights with a sensor or a video doorbell. In rural areas, it's particularly important to ensure that your home, outbuildings and machinery are locked and that cameras and light sensors are fitted and suspicious vehicles and individuals are reported. Burglary. 5 things to speak up about. The public in Hampshire can also help keep their homes and their community safer by contacting Crime Stoppers anonymously if they know the name of anyone involved in burglaries, are aware of planned break-ins, including where and when, have info about gangs who target vulnerable victims, know who is selling stolen goods and where, have details about people stealing car keys from homes and then cars. Contact Crime Stoppers 100% anonymously if you have information about people who are planning burglaries or selling stolen items, such as power tools and jewellery. Call their UK contact centre at any time on 0800 555 111 or complete a safe and secure online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Beth Simpson, Hampshire Regional Manager for the charity Crime Stoppers, said, "Burglary is not a victimless crime. It's traumatic to lose valuable and personally important items from your home. The emotional shock of having your property invaded can also be deeply upsetting. Criminal gangs target the most vulnerable in communities, and our campaign aims to gather information about who is responsible or involved in house burglaries, thefts from sheds and garages, or keyless car thefts. When you contact our charity, we won't judge or ask for any personal details. All we want to know is what you know. We guarantee you'll remain 100% anonymous, always. In an emergency, or if you see a burglary taking place, call the police on 999 or 101. Please note, computer IP addresses are never traced, and no one will ever know you contacted Crime Stoppers. For telephone calls, there is no caller line display, no 1471 facilities, and calls have never been traced.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Water relief. East Cowes burst sewer repair underway. A sewer has burst on New Barn Road in East Cowes. The incident, reported by utility company Southern Water, has caused the closure of both New Barn Road and Old Road, with repair work now underway and a diversion put in place. The company has said no environmental damage has been caused by the burst due to wastewater being diverted directly back into the sewer network. Southern Water has brought a number of tankers into action to minimise pollution. The vehicles will manage wastewater flows between the site of the burst and its Spring Hill and Albany Road sites. A spokesperson for Southern Water said, "We believe the repair will be complete within 48 hours once it begins, and we apologise for any disruption this work and the tanker movements may cause to homes and businesses in the area." East Cowes Councillor and Isle of Wight Council Chair, Councillor Carl Love, said the repair work would not be a quick fix and would likely last for the rest of the week and possibly over the weekend. He added the road had to be dug up and the sewer pipe replaced with a safety fence installed across New Barn Road to mark a workspace. The incident comes amid a busy event schedule this week at Osborne House, including horse event, All the Queen's Horses, and Punch and Judy. English Heritage said a diversion is in place for All the Queen's Horses event parking and advised visitors to follow road signs. Carl said, "This is one of the main sewer pipes which pumps sewage across the island to the treatment factory at Sundown, and the pipe, like other pipes, has fractured and needs replacing. It's not a small job. I will try to keep you updated, and I'm sorry for the disturbance which this is going to be causing, because they need to be running 24/7. Otherwise, the alternative is to pump all the sewage out into the Solent, and we don't want that." York Avenue is also currently closed for utility repair and maintenance works, with Southern Water estimating completion by Thursday night.
Hello, this is Francis.
And I am Jerry.
We now go to news items and sport. Phone was a lifesaver for Rachel. A boating trip off the Isle of Wight turned into a life or death situation for Rachel Perrin when she was swept overboard and left fighting for her survival in the English Channel. Rachel, 51, narrowly escaped death after being swept overboard from a motor cruiser during a trip off the southern coast of the island earlier this year. The incident occurred as Rachel and her partner Mike sailed from Portsmouth to Cherbourg. Feeling seasick, she moved to the stern and was suddenly thrown into the cold water. "It was by far the most awful moment I've ever experienced," said Rachel, who had only started boating a year earlier. After surfacing, she quickly realised her partner couldn't hear her over the engine noise. Fortunately, Rachel was prepared. Her life jacket automatically inflated, keeping her afloat, and she could call 999 for help using her mobile phone, which was secured in a waterproof case around her neck. "If I did not have my phone, I think the length of time I would have been in the water means hypothermia would have killed me," she said. "The life jacket kept me afloat, but without my phone, they would have found a dead body." HM Coast Guard responded swiftly, deploying helicopters, a fixed-wing aircraft, island RNLI lifeboats from Bembridge and Yarmouth, and the independent crew from Sandown and Shanklin. Rachel stayed on the phone, passing clues to her location as she drifted miles away from the Isle of Wight. She recalled, "The fact that I could talk to someone who could give me a live update made the difference in stopping me freaking out. I knew they were looking for me and they would find me. That was hugely comforting." After over 2 hours in the water, Rachel was finally spotted by a helicopter and rescued by a winch paramedic. She was flown to St Mary's Hospital, where she recovered after a night's stay. Reflecting on her ordeal, Rachel advised fellow boaters to always keep a mobile phone in a waterproof case, wear a properly fitted life jacket, have a phone app or carry a personal locator beacon, and ensure safety equipment is up to date.
Red Funnel weekend disruption. The Red Funnel ferry service has faced further disruption and cancellations last Saturday, August the 17th, with 4 different reasons provided by the company for the issues. The vehicle ferry between East Cowes and Southampton saw considerable disruption throughout the day. In the morning, 2 sailings were cancelled due to overrunning maintenance with Red Eagle. Later, the 4 p.m. from Southampton and 5:30 p.m. from East Cowes were cancelled due to a technical issue. At 6:30 p.m, Red Funnel advised all foot passengers to use the Red Jet from Cowes after the vehicle ferry reached its passenger capacity. Then the ferry from East Cowes at 8:30 p.m. was delayed by approximately 1 hour and a half. The 10 p.m. sailing from Southampton and 11:30 p.m. crossing from East Cowes were cancelled.
There are fears that millions of pounds of money set aside to regenerate Ryde will never see the light of day. As revealed last year, Ryde was identified as one of 55 places across the country earmarked for endowment-style funds. Then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak promised to allocate £20 million to the town over a 10-year period. It formed part of a government initiative to help regenerate high streets and tackle antisocial behaviour. In the months that followed, Ryde Town Board was formed to draw up investment plans, and a consultation was also launched, allowing residents to have their say on how the money should be spent. However, members say the board has now been told it does not have to put forward proposals this month. Isle of Wight Council leader, Councillor Phil Jordan, who sits on the board and is also a councillor for Ryde, said it is unusual for grant funding to be indefinitely postponed without some clear idea of dates and time frames. He says he has serious concerns the money will not be forthcoming. My own consideration is it would be simple for the new government to clearly state the funding is guaranteed and honoured by them, but they have not done so, he said. I would not be surprised now if the autumn budget statement confirms the funding is either withdrawn or, less contentiously, reduced considerably. I know many of my town board colleagues have similar concerns. MP for Isle of Wight East, Conservative Joe Robertson, said he feared this is the first step to the new Labour government cancelling the funding. I have written to the Secretary of State to seek a cast iron guarantee that the £20 million already allocated will be coming to Ryde as planned, he said. To date, just £250,000 has been released to Ryde Town Board for community engagement work. It is understood further detail on levelling up funding will be provided in due course.
Rocker to kick off yacht race. One of the Isle of Wight's most famous and successful residents will get the 63rd Cowes Torquay Cowes race underway this weekend. Mark King, frontman and bassist with Level 42, will be in Cowes tomorrow, Saturday, where he will board the start boat at Yacht Haven to head into the Solent. When he raises the green flag, almost 20 boats will begin their challenging 210-mile journey along the south coast to Torquay and back. Mark was born and raised in Cowes.
Driver blameless in scooter rider's death. A scooter rider who died in a crash during the Isle of Wight scooter rally 2 years ago drove on the wrong side of the road, resulting in a massive force collision, an inquest heard. Matthias Kiablis from Hamburg in Germany was killed following a collision on Newport Road, Apps Heath, on August the 23rd, 2022. An inquest into his death, held at the Isle of Wight Coroner's Court yesterday, revealed how the 51-year-old died instantly as a consequence of multiple injuries sustained during a crash. The cause of death was attributed to multiple traumatic injuries. Various statements were read out in court, as well as the findings of a comprehensive collision report, which revealed Mr. Klarbis had been driving on the incorrect side of the road at the time of the collision, perhaps out of confusion, forgetting he was no longer riding in mainland Europe. Coroner Caroline Summeray said Mr. Klarbis, a motor scooter enthusiast, was on the Isle of Wight to attend the scooter rally, and the collision happened when he left his campsite. The court heard it was a dark, twisting road, and tragically the two vehicles, a scooter and a Citroën C3, collided near a bend. Mrs. Summeray said both parties would have had a couple of seconds at most to react. She said it was clear the other driver, a carer very familiar with the route, utterly traumatised by the event, was not at fault in any way. Miss Summeray concluded that Mr. Klarbis, a welder by occupation, died because of a road traffic collision.
Charity all about community. In the heart of East Cowes, a dedicated team at the charity Community Spirited is making a profound difference to the lives of island residents. Launched in August 2007 by Jane Alcorn, Community Spirited has grown steadily, providing a range of services which include home care, shopping, assistance, home-cooked meals and even a cafe. At its core, however, lies a mission to tackle food poverty and combat loneliness, particularly through its community pantry, which has become a lifeline for many. The community pantry, which opened 2 years ago, supports around 460 members, with an average of 70 people using the service each week to top up on their weekly shop. The pantry offers a variety of food items, from fresh vegetables and meats to pantry staples like pasta, rice and tinned foods. It also features a red shelf with top branded products such as Tetley tea, Nestlé Shreddies and Heinz soup. Notably, the pantry aims to provide members with ingredients that allow them to cook healthy, home-cooked meals, which many users find invaluable. The charity spends around £500 weekly to feed 70 members, propped up by donations and kind offerings from local supermarkets. The county press visited Community Spirited, where one pantry user shared how the service has been essential in managing her and her partner's debt. She said, "I would be lost without it. If you are having a bad day, they can help. It's great that I can speak to them." She said that the pantry has most definitely alleviated some of the problems she has been facing, adding that the food they offer at the pantry allows you to make your own home-cooked food. Another member, whose son has dietary requirements, highlighted that getting food from the pantry allows her to buy food for her son from the supermarket. Community Spirited even provided her with a soup maker, enabling her to prepare meals that meet her son's dietary requirements. The majority of people who are members live in East Cowes, but the pantry also supports members island-wide. While food support is a critical aspect of Community Spirited work, it is far from the only service they offer. As Keith Kite, a pantry worker, explained, "We're not just providing members with top-up food support, but also emotional help, offering welcoming and non-judgmental space for those who visit." The charity also works to tackle communication poverty. Kindness and friendliness are almost as important as the items people leave with, Keith added. Sally Faulkner, the volunteer coordinator, spends much of her time not only organising the pantry's operations, but also helping members secure grants and navigate other support systems. She emphasised that poverty often affects those who do not qualify for benefits. Private renting issues are a significant concern, with rising rents exacerbating financial difficulties. The majority of pantry users are women aged 25 to 45, with children struggling to stretch their money from week to week. Keith said that for every young man who attends, the pantry sees a dozen young women. "We want to break through the stigma for men who feel that they have failed their families by asking for help." Community Spirited thrives thanks to its dedicated team of volunteers, many of whom are retired professionals from various fields, including psychologists, doctors and prison officers. The support of the wider community, through donations, volunteering and participation, is becoming increasingly crucial. For many of the Isle of Wight community, Spirited is not just a charity. It is a beacon of hope in challenging times. Community Spirited Pantry is open on Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday and Thursday mornings.
A petition to stop ExxonMobil's Solent CO2 pipeline project coming to the Isle of Wight has gathered over 3,500 signatures. Little Atherfield resident Christopher Davis's plea on change.org warns the project would leave a massive scar across the island. ExxonMobil is seeking permission to install an underground pipeline to transport captured CO2 from its Fawley manufacturing complex and possibly the wider Solent area. The CO2 would be taken to a deep rock formation in the English Channel for safe storage. The corporation is seeking views for its pipeline corridor consultation, which proposes 3 possible routes, 2 of which travel beneath the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight north to south corridor is 36 kilometres long and stretches south from Leap under the Solent Sealed and continues south to Little Atherfield. The 24-kilometre Isle of Wight north to west corridor follows the same route before heading southwest towards Dunsbury near Brook. Both Richard Quigley, Labour MP for Isle of Wight West, and Councillor Nick Stewart, who represents Bryanston, Calbourne and Shalfleet for the Isle of Wight Council, have criticised the project. Michael Foley of ExxonMobil said, "We are here to listen and to understand views on how the proposed consultation corridors would perform and encourage everyone to take part."
Man drifted 2 miles out to sea. A holidaymaker has been rescued after drifting out to sea 2 miles on a small inflatable dinghy. The man in his 40s said he was shouting for help and waving to a passing plane, but no one could hear him. Fortunately, a member of the public spotted him and called 999. Sandown beach lifeguards on a quad bike and a jet ski were the first on the scene at Shanklin Beach. The lifeguard unit quickly reached the holidaymaker and his inflatable and brought him back to shore.
Police in armed man alert. Reports of a man with a weapon at a park prompted a response from armed police on Saturday evening. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary were alerted to the report shortly before 8 p.m. Officers rushed to the scene at Simeon Street Recreation Ground in Ryde, and a specialised armed police unit from Portsmouth was requested. The Armed Marine Police Unit arrived on the island via police boat at Ryde Pier Head shortly after. The specialist officers carried out inquiries in the area, but no weapon was found and no offences were identified. The incident was scaled back and armed police returned to the boat at Ryde Pier, crossing back to Portsmouth at 9:30 p.m. A police spokesperson said the neighbourhood policing team will carry out regular patrols in the area.
6 are injured in a serious road crash. 3 youngsters and 3 adults were injured, some of them seriously, following a major collision. Emergency services were called to a crash involving 2 cars on the B3041 Middle Road at Calbourne at 10:38 a.m. last Friday. At least 3 ambulances and 2 air ambulances attended the crash scene between New Barn Farm and Swainston Manor. At least 4 fire engines were also sent to the incident. The crash involved a black Seat Altica and a blue Honda Jazz. The driver of the Seat, a 27-year-old man, suffered minor injuries. The passengers of the Seat, all female, aged 29, 8 and 6, also suffered minor injuries. The driver of the Honda, a 37-year-old man, suffered serious injuries and was being treated in hospital. A 6-year-old boy, who was a passenger in the Honda, also suffered serious injuries and was taken to hospital for treatment. The other passenger, a 4-year-old boy, suffered minor injuries. A spokesperson for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary said, "We would like to speak to anyone who witnessed this collision or vehicles in the moments before the collision. In particular, we would like to speak to anyone with relevant dashcam footage. Contact police on 101, quoting reference 44240 351 203.
Opposition to new homes heating up. Freshwater's Memorial Hall was packed out on Tuesday evening for an impassioned discussion on a proposed mixed-use development. Spectators and participants were overflowing out of the entrance to the Memorial Hall to listen to and contribute to Freshwater Parish Council's public meeting on the Heathfield Farm campsite planning application. The event consisted mainly of contributions from the floor, which were overwhelmingly critical of Stephen Hucklesby's proposal. His proposal outlined 69 housing units, retail floor space, road infrastructure and parking provisions. Heathfield Farm campsite is bordered by Heathfield Road to the east and the A3054 Colwell Road to the north and west. Guests raised a wide variety of concerns, including whether the proposed housing would be genuinely affordable, second homeowners buying up the developed units, the erosion of greenfield land and biodiversity harm to the west of the island's tourism industry, and a lack of employment opportunities for the development's residents. Parish Councillor Daniel James said, "Where it is a private sector developer, they're obviously going to go for the maximum return on investment. So if you want to have more affordable housing, then please don't look to the private sector to do that." Councillor James added the housing units were for whoever pays for them. The Isle of Wight Council needs to be reminded that Freshwater is a village. It's just turning into one big urban sprawl, one resident commented. In a moment of heightened tensions, a woman questioned the coherence and representativeness of the parish council. Chair of the meeting and the parish council's planning committee, Councillor Anne Bamford, interrupted the question and told the woman her question was not relevant. The woman continued speaking and, after being asked to leave, was eventually led out of the hall, with Councillor Bamford threatening to call the police.
GCSE students' waiting's over. GCSE students are being congratulated for years of hard work and determination. Pupils from across the island ended their nervous wait, returning to schools to pick up their grades yesterday, Thursday. Councillor Jonathan Bacon, Cabinet Member for Children's Services and Education, said, "On behalf of the Council, I would like to congratulate every young person who has collected their GCSE exam results. A special thanks is also extended to all of the teachers, leaders and schools for their hard work, support and partnership in delivering these results. For those whose results were not as hoped or are unsure about where they want to go next or do next, you can visit the Island Futures website for further information. Students who may be feeling uncertain, anxious or stressed about the future as they move on to college, employment or training can seek support from Young Minds. At the Bay C of E School in Sandown, Head Emma Bowden said, "We are extremely proud of our wonderful students and are so pleased that their results reflect the hard work and effort they have put into their studies." Christ the King College, Newport, praised its pupils' strength of character, determination and resilience and said results were overwhelmingly positive. At Priory School in Whippingham, 19 different subjects were taken and 175 grades recorded. In English, Maths and Science, pupils achieved a 100% pass rate at grades 9 to 4. Meanwhile, Cowes Enterprise College said results have been excellent and staff are proud of students' hard work. Ryde Academy said grades are particularly impressive, especially as this is only the second year normal grading has returned since the pandemic. Also celebrating a strong set of results is Medina College, where the majority of students are moving on to the island sixth form. And pupils at Carisbrooke College have collectively and individually exceeded expectations, proving hard work really pays off, the school says.
Lifeboat Station Open Day. Bembridge RNLI lifeboat station is opening its doors to the public this weekend, promising an entertaining day out for families. From 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on Saturday, August the 24th, the lifeboat station at Lane End will be open for visitors with opportunities to view inshore and all-weather lifeboats, as well as interactive displays. During the day, though subject to operational availability, spectators will be able to watch both the Tamar-class all-weather lifeboat and the D-class inshore lifeboat launch and carry out a demonstration display. The open day is free, with all money from donations, RNLI sales and refreshments going directly towards the lifeboats, helping to save lives at sea.
Deadline for Art Trail lighthouses. The Light of the South Art Trail, a collection of 40 uniquely designed lighthouses, including 5 on the island, concludes on September the 1st. Having started on July the 1st, the event supports Southampton Hospital's charity. Each lighthouse has a code with which participants can log into a free app to track their progress. There are 5 in Cowes and 35 in Southampton. Red Funnel is encouraging participation by offering reduced ferry fares for those who locate their sponsored lighthouses. The lighthouses will then be auctioned on September the 20th at the end of the Southampton International Boat Show. Additionally, there is a window spotting trail featuring mini lighthouses replicas till September the 12th. Fran Collins, CEO of Red Funnel, said, "Several of our Red Funnel colleagues have already completed the trail. One of our colleagues and her children recently logged 22,000 steps finding all the lighthouses in just one day, proving that the Light the South Trail can be completed as a one-day challenge."
Rally, world's biggest. Thousands of scooterists are prepared to make their way to the Isle of Wight for the return of what's been called the world's biggest scooter rally. Each year, over the August bank holiday weekend, the event attracts hordes of riders, and 2024 is no exception. Scooterists will set up camp at Sandown Airport, where there will be an entertainment area with live music. The campsite opens at midday on Thursday, August the 22nd, and closes at the same time on Monday, August the 26th. On Sunday, August the 25th, they will take part in the famous Ride Out. Setting off at 1 p.m. from the former ice rink in Ryde, riders will head towards Puckpool, Nettleston and St Helens, then along Latimer Road to Bembridge. From there they will head to Yaverland, through Sandown High Street, Shanklin, Apps Heath, before arriving back at Sandown Airport. Up to 10,000 scooterists are expected to descend on the island between August the 22nd and August the 26th. The Isle of Wight Scooter Rally is an official British Scooter Rallies Association rally with the official campsite and entertainment organised by VFM. There are also many independent events run by scooterists and local venues.
Stir crazy over shop door chime. Neighbours living in Totland say they are being driven stir crazy by an irritating and atrocious chime on the door of a local convenience store. Nearby residents on the Broadway say they are often rudely awakened by the bell, which goes off every time the automatic doors to the Premier shop open. A spokesperson for the shop said the volume of the chime has already been lowered and argues it is needed. After undergoing a refit, the shop reopened with the new bell in March, residents say. Once it became apparent what the sound was, they went round to ask for it to be turned down, but were rebuffed. They said the sound is like an unwanted alarm as it wakes them up as early as 6 a.m. Ashley Yo, 64, who lives nearby, said, "We understand commercial sounds have to happen. We don't mind that. What we are complaining about is the intrusive sound which affects our daily lives between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. What we want is for that sound to be kept within the shop so that we don't have to hear it. Phil Yates, 64, said he was asked by the council to make note of how many times it goes off. On one day, he said, it sounded 58 times in an hour. He told the county press it wasn't a flow of people going in and out, it was just the door opening and closing. That's like somebody playing the drums in the back garden at 2 a.m. in the morning. You go stir crazy. Phil, who has tinnitus, says it has driven him so crazy he has even considered moving. Angela Kritoff, 62, said, the worst bit for me is first thing in the morning and last thing at night. I don't know why they need to have an alert for such a small shop, but that's their choice. A spokesperson for the shop said he needs to keep the chime as it lets staff know when there are customers in the shop. The Isle of Wight confirmed the environmental health team has received complaints. They are undertaking investigations, a spokesperson said.
Woman defiant on drug use. A woman refused the chance to have her drug charge dropped and told magistrates, I smoke pot, get over it. Anna Beardsmore of Royal Exchange Newport attended the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court and pleaded guilty to possession of cannabis. The 41-year-old was offered the chance of an adjournment for prosecutor Liz Miller to pursue Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary for an out-of-court disposal, saving her from a criminal conviction. Beardsmore was asked if she would comply with the disposal, but refused, saying, get on with it, I have things to do. There's a war going on. I smoke pot, get over it. Your justice system is a joke. Miss Miller said police stopped and searched Beardsmore in Newport and found a very small quantity of cannabis. Beardsmore, unrepentant, said, I only smoke pot because it helps with my illnesses. She told magistrates, you should decriminalise it, maybe, before asking for her cannabis pot back, as it was sentimental. Magistrates refused, telling her it would be destroyed, instead handing her an £80 fine. Beardsmore must pay £85 costs and a £32 surcharge fee that would have been avoided if she had accepted an out-of-court disposal.
Skip hire firm accused over road offence. A skip hire company is accused of not providing details of the driver of a 4x4 vehicle registered to it involved in a road traffic offence in Hampshire. Westridge Skip Hire, based on Bridlesford Road, faces a charge of failing to give information relating to the identification of the driver of a Mitsubishi Challenger. Andrew Liddell, a director of the company and its waste manager, pleaded not guilty on behalf of the company at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. A trial will be held on October the 2nd.
Drug driver suspects cocaine-laced cake. A drug driver who had no idea how he had cocaine in his system, other than guessing the drug was laced in a cake he ate at a party, has been banned from the road. Paul Dixon, 37, of Cockleton Lane, Gurnard, admitted 2 charges of drug driving on December the 18th. Appearing for sentencing in July, he was fined £692 and disqualified from driving for 17 months. He was also ordered to pay costs of £85 and a £277 surcharge. At 4:35 p.m, a police speed check in Gurnard recorded Dixon driving his van at 40 miles per hour through a 30 miles per hour zone. Officers could smell cannabis and gave him a roadside drugs test, which proved positive for cocaine and cannabis. Nicholas Muir, defending, said his client had smoked cannabis at a party 2 days prior, unaware of how long the drug remained in the system. He also argued Dixon had no idea how he had cocaine in his system, suggesting he may have eaten some cake laced with cocaine at the party.
Hit music lineup for Scooter Set. From the 1980s hitmakers to local musicians, there will be plenty of live music to catch as part of the celebrations for the world's biggest scooter rally. Roddy Radiation, a former guitarist with the Specials, will perform with his band, the Skability Rebels, at the Rocket Ronnie's in Ryde today, Friday. The support act will be Isle of Wight punk group X Directory. Rocket Ronnie's will host Marquis Drive, Sharp Class, the Small Fakers and the Jammed. Sandown Airport will host live bands and DJs, including Mirror in the Bathroom and Tears of a Clown hitmakers The Beat, featuring Rankin Jr. Among those also performing at the airport are Double Barrel, the Highliners and a band called Malice, a tribute to the Jam. Hosting free live music at Ryde's Eastern Gardens, Jack Up Events Ticket to Ride will return. Taking to the stage will also be Steve Love, Beth and John, Scooted and Booted and Sound System, Fusion Band Party, It's Not a Phase Mum, The Sirens, Amelia, The Geckos and Hashtag.
Trapped travellers standoff rumbles on. A standoff between a landowner and a community of travellers who say they have been trapped inside a car park is no closer to being resolved nearly a month on. Van owners have told the county press they will not back down over the row, which has seen concrete bollards installed at the entrance to the car park at Bembridge Point. Last week, Malcolm Salt of Bembridge Harbour Authority, the company which owns the land, issued an ultimatum saying the travellers could leave for free if they do so on Monday, August the 19th. He said he went there on Friday, August the 16th, to move the bollards, and only one vehicle left and the other 11 stayed. He said it was an afternoon of wasted time, and he was given a myriad of excuses. However, 2 travellers at the site said some have genuine reasons for not leaving, including there being nowhere else for them to go. They said if the pillars were not there in the first place, they could have come and gone as they pleased, as they have done with no problems for many years. They also said some of the vans are not working, and being blocked in means they can't get anyone in to help repair them. Once again, they refuted claims that they were mistreating land, saying the area is clean. They also said they continuously support the nearby shops, cafes and pubs. One of the van owners, Pippa Amos, said she was being allowed to leave for work before the weekend, but could not speak for the rest of the community. Meanwhile, the Isle of Wight Council said, as the land is private, it does not have jurisdiction.
And now we move on to Wight memories and nostalgia. The county press has delved into its archives, and here's a couple of articles from that. 100 years ago, in August 1924, the Salterns Juvenile Regatta and Sports opened to children's residents in Seaview, Springville and Nettlestone. It proved popular and featured sports including rowing, swimming, sculling and running. Charles St John, 85, of Warden Road, Totland, claimed to be the last white survivor of those who accompanied Livingstone on his explorations in Africa. Mr St John joined Livingstone in 1863 and accompanied the explorer up the Rovuma River towards Nicaea. Samuel Wight & Co., when the General Steam Navigation Company Limited of London awarded them the contract to build a 300-foot fast paddle steamer for its summer service between London, Margate and Ramsgate. The steamer will be the first in her class to burn fuel. 50 years ago, in August 1974, Patricia Price, an instructor at the National Sailing Centre, became the first woman to win the Cowes Offshore Tin Bath Race, which attracted 31 entries. The Isle of Wight County Council gave the go-ahead for the island's 5th high school to be built at Fairley in Newport.
Maritime tragedy claimed 800 lives. August the 29th, 1782 was a perfect summer's morning on the Isle of Wight. The Solent was as flat as a mill pond. Anchored halfway between Portsmouth and Ryde was the Royal George, the largest warship in the world. Launched in 1756, it had taken more than 1,600 acres of oak to build her. She was now preparing to sail to Gibraltar once a vital repair was carried out on the hull below the waterline. To do this, her master, Captain Waghorn, decided to heel or lean the ship over until the damaged area was clear of the sea. By the clumsy method of shifting some of the ship's cannons and supplies to the opposite side of the ship. At 7 a.m, as the crew began the heeling, there were roughly 1,800 people aboard, consisting of the 1,200 crew and nearly 300 visiting relatives, while below deck there were workmen and 100 prostitutes who had spent a profitable night on board. Within minutes, 800 of them would be dead. The heeling went beyond the intended 7 degrees. The cannon and supplies couldn't be moved back quickly enough, and the huge ship slowly toppled over and sunk, just the masts visible. It was the biggest maritime disaster in British waters. One of the crew told the subsequent court-martial that the ship's carpenter could see the ship was going too far and pleaded with the lieutenant, "If you will, sir, please right the ship. It is my duty to tell you she will not bear it any longer."
The lieutenant gave him a short shrift. "If you think, sir, that you can manage the ship better than I can, you had better take command." Within minutes, the carpenter's fears became reality. The ship slowly capsized and the sea flowed in through the gun ports, which unaccountably had not been locked. More than 400 bodies were recovered that day, but many bodies were still floating 8 to 10 days later, a commentator reporting. Bodies would come up 30 or 40 nearly at a time. They would rise up so suddenly as to frighten someone. The watermen took from them their buckles, money and watches, and then made fast a rope to their heels and towed them to the land. If they land at Portsmouth, they are threatened to bury them at their own expense. 10 days later, at least 100 were still floating on the water, and the watermen decided not to take them up on account of the above threat. Despite evidence of bad practice on the part of Waghorn and his lieutenant, the subsequent court-martial found that the accident was not caused by shifting tons of cargo and cannons to one side of the ship, allowing the ship to overbalance. Instead, their lordship claims the ship's hull had rotted out and gave way at the precise moment the ship rolled over, declaring, "Having heard the narrative of Captain Waghorn and having deliberately considered the same, it appears to the court that the ship was not overheeled. It also appeals that the captain, officers and ship's company be acquitted of all blame." The verdict was branded a whitewash. One commentator remarking, "Captain Waghorn was tried by a court-martial and acquitted. God knows then who the blame ought to lie on, for blame there must have been somewhere, for never was a ship lost in so strange and unaccountable manner." To make sure no one could ever challenge the verdict, their lordships banned all diving to the wreck for the next 50 years. In July 1921, County Press columnist Vectornis reported, many of the bodies were washed ashore at Ryde and were buried in a mass grave that stretched along the beach on the Dover, a low piece of ground near the castle, where the graves were still to be seen in 1841. The hillocks wore away and the land was reclaimed in Victorian times to extend the esplanade and allow the building of the Strand. The Royal George wreck was blown up twice in the early 1800s, and a dive in 1990 found no trace of the wreckage. Today, a Royal George Memorial Garden can be found at the eastern end of the Strand.
The County Press has been bringing islanders the news since 1884. We've delved into our archives. 125 years ago, in August 1899, an unusual incident occurred at Osborne when a respectably dressed man standing at the side of the roadway threw a letter into Queen Victoria's carriage as it passed. The man, a German businessman, was arrested but released after he stated he did not know he was breaking the law, as on the continent it was common to throw missives into royal carriages. The Duke of Connaught rendered timely assistance following a coach accident in East Cowes. The passenger coach, drawn by 4 horses, was coming down York Avenue when one of the leading horses slipped on a stone and fell, bringing down 2 other horses. The Duke jumped out of his passing carriage to help get the horses to their feet again and calm the passengers. 12 sailmakers from Cowes firm, Messrs. Ratsey and Lapthorne, sailed to New York especially to work on the sails of Sir Thomas Lipton's yacht Shamrock before she competed for the American Cup. 75 years ago, in August 1949, well-known hypnotists Douglas J. Watson and Lee Bonney, the world's only woman artist in this field, were given awe-inspiring demonstrations on the island. Mr. Watson also visited the county press offices and was hopeful of curing a young member of staff of stuttering. The continued drought was not causing any water shortage in Newport due to the usage of boreholes sunk during the war by the Canadian Army. Around 500,000 gallons daily was being provided by these boreholes, around a quarter of Newport's daily consumption. A first day in a new job I'll never forget. It's not every day that Miriam Margolyes invites you to spend the day with her. It's even rarer that spending the day with Miriam Margolyes is the first day of a new job. Yet that's exactly what happened to me. Having just graduated from university in Manchester, I had returned home to the Isle of Wight to work out my next steps. I loved doing student journalism, having just been editor of the music section of my student newspaper. I pitched to the county press to cover Victoria's festival in Portsmouth, and CP editor Laurie Little invited me in for a week of work experience. On the Thursday afternoon, an interview opportunity with Miriam was offered to the room in advance of her appearance at Wight Proms. With everyone else busy due to the print deadline, I took it up. Knowing that she was a self-confessed obsessive of Charles Dickens, I had to mention Bonchurch. I asked her whether she was planning to visit. It turned out that she was unaware of its significance in Dickens' life and career. We made a loose plan to go there, with Miriam taking my number. Following more correspondence, Laurie organised for Miriam to meet historian and Bonchurch tour guide Sue Lowdery, and I organised a trip to Osborne House to see Queen Victoria's summer residence. Miriam loved both trips. She knew a lot of the history already and was delighted to discover the Isle of Wight's part in some of her favourite historical figures' lives. At Bonchurch, receiving a talk on Dickens, Miriam took notes like an eager student. She read some of Dickens' letters from Bonchurch aloud. There was barely a dry eye under that veranda. It felt very special to be in her company in an intimate and significant environment. I was struck by how generous she was with the public. Sitting on Cowes Promenade, she spoke to everyone who passed by and said hello, and had photos too with anyone that asked. But most of all, she loved conversation. It was the people who spoke to her as Miriam the person, rather than Miriam the celebrity, who had the fullest conversations with the person I got to know over our trips. I've just been taken on at the County Press as an apprentice reporter, and my day in Bonchurch was my first day on the job. Miriam's generosity in that first interview may have clinched the job for me by giving me the opportunity to shine. It was wonderful to meet Miriam and spend time with her.
And now we move on to some public information. Joe Robertson, MP for Isle of Wight East, writes concerns over Ryde's promised £20 million. Parliament is in recess until September the 2nd. This has given me the opportunity to attend lots of local events and meet with resident groups and businesses. Susie Ellis has started work as my office manager, and we are still working through the 2,000 emails received in the last 6 weeks. I will be making an announcement on the location of my constituency office shortly, and will be recruiting further office roles. Ferries, healthcare and the local economy continue to be high on my agenda. I am trying to persuade the government to include ferry regulation in new legislation relating to rail, buses and integrated transport. Labour wants to bring key transport infrastructure under greater democratic control and ensure better integration for travellers. It would make no sense to leave ferries out. I am hopeful the government will listen, and I have started that conversation face to face with Louise Haigh, the Secretary of State for Transport, and I am continuing it with her junior ministers. As readers will be aware from last week's front page, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner wrote to the Isle of Wight Council to say she is considering imposing a mandatory housing target of 1,104 houses per year on the Isle of Wight. This is a huge increase on the average 347 houses per year actually being built, and well above the 453 houses in the Island Planning Strategy, which passed a democratic vote of councillors earlier this year. I have written in support of the Council's position that the figure of 1,104 is too much. It's much too high. It will be a threat to our towns, villages and natural environment. To put such a suggestion in a formal letter shows that the government is sadly out of touch with our island. Ryde Town Board and other town boards across England have been told that they do not need to submit their strategic investment plans to government this month. I am seriously concerned that this is the first step to cancelling the funding and taking back £20 million planned for Ryde. I have written to the Secretary of State to seek a cast iron guarantee that the £20 million already allocated will be coming to Ryde as planned. A working relationship with the Council and West Wight MP Richard Quigley continue to be important for making progress on some of the bigger issues affecting the whole island. I met with the Council leader and Chief Executive last week to talk about ferries, health and social care, planning and local devolution. We agreed to meet regularly.
Your health over the bank holiday weekend. Pharmacy opening hours across the island. Kemgay Chemist, 3 Clifton Buildings, Avenue Road, Freshwater, 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Boots the Chemists, 122 to 126 High Street, Newport, 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Day Lewis Pharmacy, 22 Carisbrooke High Street, Carisbrooke, 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock. Boots the Chemists, 170 to 172 High Street, Ryde, 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Tesco Pharmacy, Brading Road, Ryde, 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Boots the Chemist, 15 High Street, Sandown, 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock.
And now we have some letters. Hazel Gorn from Rides writes, "Take the bus or enjoy the boat." While I fully understand Nigel Wellborn's frustration, County Press 16th of August 24, at the temporary closure of Island Line, might I respectfully suggest that he use the excellent bus service we enjoy on the island? Better still, stay on board the preserved paddle steamer Waverley and enjoy the truly unique and wonderful trip right round the island. This is the only way to see the whole of the island's beautiful coastline from the sea. A magical experience not to be missed.
Labour already getting job done, from Geoffrey Brooking, Havant, Hampshire. Sir Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper's ability to command and mobilise the machinery of government across the police, the Home Office, the CPS and the courts so quickly after just 6 weeks in charge is remarkably impressive. It proves that the Labour Party have got a grip on power and eyes focused on getting the job of running the country done. A clear message has been sent out that they are tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime too. It's just a shame that the scorched earth policy of the last government has left such a crisis behind in the prison system, despite Rishi Sunak being warned of a pending crisis and ignoring it just to keep the right-wing element of his party happy.
Ian Mackey from Totland writes, "Bus drivers have courteous attitude. Over the last 4 months I have been training on my bike most days ahead of a big event on the West Wight, predominantly circular routes around Totland, Yarmouth, Thorley, Wellow and Freshwater at all times of the day. I would like to commend the drivers of Southern Vectus buses in those areas, predominantly the numbers 7, 12, Coaster and occasionally the school buses, for their professional, courteous and considerate nature towards cyclists and other road users."
Antisocial noise, from Dean McCabe, Newport. As a resident of Carpenter's Quay, I would like to highlight the distress caused by the antisocial behaviour in the area. This is usually on the other side of the quay, the Fairlea side, and involves cars arriving to park late into the night and play loud music, rev their engines, do burnouts and create a nuisance. The area seems to have become a magnet for local youths, drunks and what I fear are drug dealers. More police patrols are needed. A simple solution for the car problem would be a barrier which could be managed by the Harbour Office, closed and locked between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. Also, we are badly affected by the roar of car and motorbike engines as they race up the dual carriageway from Coppins Bridge towards Cowes. The noise is unbelievable and could be easily reduced by making the carriageway a 30 mile per hour limit and installing a speed camera. Tackling these issues wouldn't have a negative impact on anyone, but could massively improve the quality of life for those living in the area.
Roy Hughes from Shanklin has praise for the glorious Rylestone Gardens. Can I offer a word of praise for the gardeners at Rylestone Gardens in Shanklin? The flowers, which must have taken an age to plant, are now in full bloom. What an array of colours. Look out for the red squirrels amongst the trees. Need a rest? Then refreshments are available in the tea garden, together with some crazy golf. A relaxing morning or afternoon for everyone.
Let's revamp our town markets. Malcolm Taylor, Newport. The island needs a state-of-the-art street market. People flock to markets in Lymington and Winchester, so why not Newport? A good manager would promote the market to traders, and we could have a wide range of produce, including British and ethnic street food. Some lessons could be learnt from Cows Week, and I think a weekly market would be more profitable for the island. Street entertainment could also be an added feature. Our existing market seems to be dwindling away, and I think a professional revamp would put Newport on the map. From Isle of Wight Radio, Learning Disability and Autism Key Worker Programme Team named National Award finalists. The Learning Disabilities and Autism Key Worker Programme team at NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight has been shortlisted in the Health Service Journal Awards for their work with children and young people who are at risk of hospital admission. To help reduce hospital admissions or reduce the length of stay if admitted, the team of key workers work with local partners to ensure that children and young people have the right access to the care and support that they need in the community. The team are finalists in the Innovation and Improvement in Reducing Healthcare Inequalities Award category in the 2024 SHSJ Awards. Tina Woodcock, Service Lead for the Learning Disability and Autism Key Worker Programme at NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight, said, "The team has been working closely with people under 25 years old who have a learning disability or autism to prevent them from being admitted to hospital and to ensure they can get the care that they need within the community. This means that they don't miss out on their education, community activities, and are able to continue to see family and friends on a regular basis. We engage with local social care, community and education partners to offer support and solutions to work in a joined-up way to ensure that the young person and their family have an active part within the decision-making process. 2 further schemes across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight have also been shortlisted for an HSJ award. The Isle of Wight Dementia Strategy is a finalist for the Place-Based Partnership and Integrated Care Award. The Hampshire Hospitals Foundation Trust Catering Team is a finalist in the Towards Net Zero Award. Jenny Irwin, Mental Health, Learning Disabilities and Autism and Children's Care Director at NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight, said, "I'm delighted that these initiatives have been recognised by the HSJ Awards and wish the teams the best of luck at the awards ceremony, which takes place in London in November."
From the Isle of Wight Radio, Police Commissioner takes latest steps to reduce reoffending. The Police and Crime Commissioner, Donna Jones, has officially opened a 4th Integrated Offender Management IOM house for former inmates to rehabilitate and support their journey towards crime-free lives. The IOM house opened in Basingstoke earlier this year and is the 4th one in Hampshire. The other 3 are located in Gosport, Portsmouth and Southampton. IOM houses are primarily for offenders leaving prison with substance misuse needs. The transformative and trauma-informed programme works in partnership to reduce reoffending, promote safer communities and support the residents to live free from crime and substance abuse. The Police Commissioner funds the homelessness and substance misuse charity Society of St James, SSJ, to deliver the specialist support in collaboration with the Probation Service. She is the only PCC in England to commission IOM houses in this way. Residents take part in a weekly timetable of meaningful activities and engage with mentors to help them tackle underlying causes of offending. All residents engage in mandatory substance misuse treatment within the first week. PCC Donna Jones said, IOM is a nationally recognised way of managing offenders. IOM houses provide a home, offering support and equipping residents with new skills and knowledge. This includes training, volunteering and employment opportunities, engaging with sporting activities, becoming a peer mentor and budget management. This approach demonstrates a significant impact on social outcomes, including life skills, development and paid employment. In total, up to 28 residents can be accommodated at any one time across the 4 IOM houses in Basingstoke, Gosport, Portsmouth and Southampton. Between April and June this year, 26 residents were supported across the 4 IOM houses. 13 individuals were aged 26 to 35-year-old and the rest were aged 36 or over. Of those in residence, 30% had grown up around domestic abuse, 46% had grown up with family members who had mental health issues, and 38% had grown up with family members with substance abuse issues. The residents accessed a range of support services, with 11 engaging with courses or training, 15 undertaking voluntary work, 15 learning life skills such as gardening, cooking and DIY, 12 in peer support lessons and 18 involved in sporting activities. The average length of stay across all 4 IOM houses was 4.3 months. 5 residents successfully left the programme to live with family, while 2 residents went on to independent living and 1 resident went into supporting housing. PCC Donna Jones added, "Reducing reoffending is a central part of my remit as Police Commissioner. Some offenders have been committing crime for a number of years. The IOM houses are a vital step to stop the cycle of offending by giving people the opportunity to turn their lives around." And it's goodbye from Jerry.
And goodbye from Francis.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Everyone has to put their trust in others from time to time, but I don't think it's an unreasonable assumption that blind and partially sighted people have to do it rather more often than most. When crossing a road, for example, parting with money in a shop, signing a contract, and in our relationships. Let's face it, sight is an important conveyor of information, both factual and emotional, which is why it surprises me that I can't recall ever devoting a programme to it on In Touch. So we're putting that right today. To help me, I'm joined by 3 people who all lead full lives, but who acknowledge that there are many times when they have to take a bit of a gamble on when and who to trust. Denise Lee is a professional opera singer who regularly works with her instrumentalist husband, Stefan, who's also blind. Denise, like me, has been blind from birth. Richard Lane lost his sight in his early 20s. He's worked for both RNIB and Guide Dogs, also for the medical journal The Lancet, and now teaches the appreciation of wine. And Kelly Barton now works for the Thomas Pocklington Trust and has recently given a talk on this whole issue of trust. She's also a keen runner who, as featured on In Touch, has recently married her long-time running guide, an exercise in trust if ever I heard one. We'll come back to the issue of relationship, but first I want to talk to all of you about perhaps the most common occasion when we have to place trust in a complete stranger, i.e., when you need a guiding arm, whether it's on a railway station, out on the street or in an unfamiliar building. So, Kelly, what are the rules? What are your rules?
I do rely on people all the time, and I do have to put my trust in lots of different sort of strangers. So whether that's, like you say, crossing the road in a train station, giving my PIN number to a taxi driver, it's a real common occurrence for me. I kind of always go with my gut instinct. If it doesn't feel right, then I move away from that person. And I always try and give myself some kind of backup so I know how to get there just in case.
We'll come back to some of those issues. Richard, you had to learn to do this. How difficult was it from scratch?
I think I kind of like people before I don't like them. And I think that really helps. Because I think that loosely translated, that meant in my blind life, which started 30 odd years ago, I trusted people by default unless they proved to be otherwise. So I realised that in order to start getting out there, having been marooned in my flat for about a year while going blind and getting a bit of rehab training, all the stuff that goes on, I realised that actually it was frightening, but maybe I was lucky. But the first few people I asked for help and getting help actually made me realise I could go out relatively independently. Okay, I need a bit of help. And actually by putting my trust in those early days, whoever they were, those first few people at the local railway station or on my street where I lived at the time or whatever, or my combination of my friends, it went okay. And that was the beginning of me realising actually maybe I can cope with the rest of my life being blind.
And that is a key point, really. That's really why I wanted to do this, because I was thinking of people who perhaps are newly blind and for whom it is a frightening thing. Because I think what you're saying is if you don't put trust in people, you won't ever feel confident enough to go out.
Exactly. I mean, you can't go out unless you've got the courage to ask for help. And you can't ask for help if you mistrust people, can you? Even if you haven't done it yet. You've got to have potential trust in spades before you start.
Let me bring Denise in on this. I guess quite a lot of that will feel common to you, but I guess it's fair to say that this is an ever-present concern if you're a woman, isn't it? I'm assuming there have been times when you've had inappropriate help.
Oh, yeah. I mean, something happened to me last year, which has never happened before, but I know happens to blind people all the time. I tend to use the facilities available. So passenger assistance, if I'm doing a train journey, I'll book passenger assistance, so that I haven't got to ask a member of the public who I don't know and who hasn't been trained to work with visually impaired people or alongside a guide dog. But last year I was getting off a train at Piccadilly and I was...
This is Piccadilly, Manchester, I guess.
Manchester, yeah. And I'd moved the dog to one side because I was putting her nose harness back on. And a man, grabbed the back of my rucksack and I heard him say to his companion, "I'll just put her here." Like a teapot or something. And I turned on him and I said, "What the hell are you doing? What do you think you're doing?" And he was indignant. And I said, "First of all, you never put your hands on someone without asking. And you're very, very lucky I didn't elbow you, because I thought I was being mugged because it's the first time it's ever happened to me. And he didn't speak to me. He just moved me.
Can I just make it clear? Was this someone who was connected with the railway or was it just a member of the public?
No, it was a passenger. It was just a member of the public.
What about you, Kelly, on this one?
I do book passenger assistance, but I also do, gladly take a bit of help from members of the public. And 9 out of 10 people are massively helpful. They are.
I agree.
And I think it's important to remember that because you wouldn't want to lose your trust in everyone or become paranoid. But I just think you need that little bit of wariness about you.
I'm going to stay with you, Kelly, on the issue of relationships, closer relationships. I mean, trust is clearly an issue in any relationships, any marriage or partnership. Based on your experiences and perhaps on other visually impaired people what are the potential pitfalls?
It can be really difficult in relationships, can't it? Because, you are trusting that person, maybe if you're out and about. Like I know it for myself in a previous relationship, someone I was with, we once had a disagreement and they decided to walk away. And I was in an area that I absolutely didn't know. And, I was really trusting that person to not do that because we all have disagreements in relationships and that's okay. But I think, that it made me feel really vulnerable.
Did you dump him?
Yeah. I did, of course. And, another example I'd give is I had a friend who split up with her husband and, he was still coming around to her house to see the child. And her mum alerted her to the fact that he was taking things from her house that she, because she couldn't see, she wouldn't have known about. And you think, that's a real breach of trust. Even when you split up, you wouldn't treat anyone like that.
No. Denise, you've been married before, I think. Your current husband, Stefan, is not only your professional partner, but blind himself. What difference does that make?
I think personally, it puts us on a more even footing, because with my previous marriage, even when it was going great, there was an assumption by a lot of people that because he was sighted and he did the driving, that he was almost like there in a caring capacity, which obviously he wasn't. With Stefan, there are not those assumptions made because obviously we're both visually impaired. But on a professional level, we have to really trust that the other knows exactly what we're going to do, because we haven't got that visual eye line between us. And if I take a wrong turn in a Mozart aria, he's there to catch me.
Right. Richard, you probably aren't likely to take a wrong turn in a Mozart aria. But
I could give it a go. Yeah.
I'm interested in what you think about that. And I know one of the things you feel is it isn't always on the sighted person.
Yeah, I'm not speaking from personal experience here, but I'm aware of other visually impaired people I've known, where I've actually seen almost them use their blindness, their visual impairment, in quite an aggressive way, quite a sort of dictatorial way. And I've actually seen the dynamics being such that the sighted partner, and I can think of male and female sighted people who have been partners in this role, have almost been a little bit sort of dictated to, as if the blindness is sort of driving the trust in the relationship, which I find quite interesting sometimes, rather than this sort of this needy, visually impaired person who's trying to plead for a little bit of help. The dynamic can become very, very strong, and I think sometimes the trust can go a bit far the other way, if that makes sense.
It's also really important to remember that as a blind person, you need to retain independence and your own motivation for doing things. And whilst it's easier to say to a sighted partner, can you read this to me and can you read that to me, it's probably not wise to do that. And there's so much more in place now where I can now take my phone out and read my own mail, for example. But 20, 30 years ago, that would have been something that fell to a sighted partner or a sighted relative.
And may still be the case for quite a lot of people who struggle with smartphones.
Yeah. It may be, but that is a whole other level of trust.
I would agree with that,
Richard.
In terms of I'd agree in terms of course, independence is something, as much independence as we can have without sight is something we all aspire to, of course, and technology is helping. I think the broader point, whether it's now or 20, 30 years ago, whenever, I think is about the individually visually impaired person and how lightly or heavily do you wear your blindness or your visual impairment. And I feel that sometimes the disability weighs quite heavy around the neck, and other days it can be quite light, and you can actually, by communicating effectively, not being too needy, but just asking for appropriate help, or in the case of sighted members of the public, giving them a little mini lesson, even if it's not a professional lesson, of how to guide, for example. I think if you wear it lightly, you can achieve an awful lot. And that's sort of my approach, I think.
So you mean if it's heavy around your neck, you maybe make it heavy around the neck of the people that you're with?
I think so. And I think a lot of my way I manage blindness is even if I'm feeling, quotes, heavy with it, I don't like to wear it too heavily with other people, because I find it's more effective to get help and understanding and empathy with people if you can communicate a bit more lightly about it. That's my kind of raison d'etre really over the past 3 decades.
I also feel it's important, even if people ask me if I need help, members of the public, even if I don't, I'll say, no thanks, I'm absolutely fine, but thank you for asking, and please always ask.
Always ask.
Someone really might need your help, the next person you see.
We've talked quite a lot about personal relationships. Can we talk about a couple of practical things? Money, for instance. Kelly, I said at the beginning that you'd been talking to other visually impaired people about this, particularly in the shopping context, for example. I mean, what's the main message here and what do you do?
Really, where money and things like that are concerned, I'm noticing more and more that there are pin machines that you can't, sometimes when you've got to put your number in, sometimes they're like flat and you can't feel where you'd put your pin number. So for myself recently, I've had to give my pin number to quite a few sales assistants or taxi drivers. I find that really challenging because you can't see what amount they've put on the screen, so you're trusting that they're being right with you about the amount. And also, having to give someone your PIN number is just never a good thing. I always tell people just to, if they do have to give out the PIN number, then to, immediately go and check the amount that has been spent on the card, if they can log into online banking or to just check it out.
One more sort of group subject here. You've all got professional lives, but the risks perhaps in your professional life in a way are different, aren't they? They're about whether you can be sure you're being accurately represented, whether you're being given the same opportunities as everyone else. I mean, how can you be sure you're not being undervalued? Denise, I'm going to start with you on this, because rather than just working for one person or one company, you find yourself working for a lot of different people and organisations.
All the time. We've just done Britain's Got Talent this time around. We were invited to be part of it, and we made it to the live shows, which we're really incredibly proud of. But it has meant a real uptick in the work that we're getting. So, we've got representation, because I did Opportunity 21 years ago, Peter, and I got an agent off the back of that. And I was devastated when I was sitting in a meeting with him one day and he said, look, why should I push you for jobs when I've got 30 sopranos on my list who can do what you can do, but they can see? And I felt the bottom fall out of my world and I sacked him. If he was saying that to me, what was he saying about me to other people? And so it's a very important fact now. I always have that conversation with people who represent me. Are you going to represent me regardless of me not being able to see? Because we're not marketed as blind musicians. We're marketed as musicians, who happen to be blind.
So what about the other way around, where they're using that maybe as a way of selling you, or they might have used it as a way of saying you can get votes this way if we push the visual impairment angle?
Well, of course, when we were on BGT, they kept trying to talk to us about the fact that we were blind and the fact that I'd had cancer. And in the end, we said, we're here as musicians. We're not here as blind musicians. I'm happy to talk about being a cancer survivor, but I'm not happy to exploit it.
I want to bring in Richard on this, because you've had a few jobs in your time and left a few. What's your experience been of this?
Obviously, early days I was working with RNIB and guide dogs, so it was a visual impairment environment anyway. But more recently, both at the Lancet, where I worked for nearly 20 years, and now at the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, where I teach, just have always had this very fortunate position to be in, whereby the blindness has never been presented as a problem. I mean, I remember my Lancet interview 25 years ago, saying to the editor, would you like me to tell you how I think I'm going to do the job as a blind person? And it was always like, oh yeah, would you mind? That'd be great. Sort of saying,
that's great though. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really what you were saying there was you haven't quite got the courage to ask me these questions, so I'm going to tell you.
I think there might have been a bit of that, perhaps uncertainty, unfamiliar sort of territory, but the approach, of course, was so welcoming and so broad-minded that it was just up to me to make that point, and ditto in the wine career here.
And it gave you the opportunity to own it as well and to sort of manage that conversation.
Exactly right. And explain where I was going to get some help. And here at the Wine College, with a support work I have, access to usual bits and pieces, it was just a case of explaining it. And my employers saying, well, if you need any extra help, just let us know. But kind of, you own it, you manage it.
Exactly.
And Kelly, can I bring you in on this? Because you've worked for organisations which, if you like, are specialist visual impairment. You've also worked for some, I think, that aren't. So again, what are the potential pitfalls there?
Yeah, prior to this job, I'd worked in sort of journalism and PR. You can never prove it, but I've definitely never been for interviews and not got the job. I'd be absolutely certain it would be because I can't see. And I remember in the early days as a journalist that, I'd get comments like, oh, you can't go and cover that story because you can't see. So they just didn't trust sometimes that you could go and do. So I felt like I was constantly having to kind of prove myself. Luckily, in this job, I've worked in the sight loss sector for about 2.5 years now, and it is completely different. And I feel you know, the fact that a sight loss charity employs so many blind and partially sighted people kind of shows, you know, there's a huge trust in that process.
And I also think there's a trust now in this system. I know it's still difficult. I know the employment figures are still terrible for visually impaired people, but in terms of the grants available, access to work, support workers, technology, there's such a lot going for visually impaired people now that I think the skill is, if it's required, is to have those conversations early doors when we're at interview stage to say, this is going to be possible. It's about the art of the very, not just the art of the slightly maybe possible, but the art of the very possible now, because so much has got better.
But I can hear people yelling at the radio, yeah, but the numbers of blind people employed aren't going up that fast, are they?
No, but it won't. But it'll take a while. I mean, they can't go down, surely. The systems are in place, and so we just need to shine a light on organisations who and people who are making that happen. Because the more we do that, the more other people will follow.
We have to raise awareness. You know, in a lot of cases, people just won't know that these things are available.
Exactly.
And it might be the first time they've employed a blind person or a disabled person. So, you know, every single time I do a job, I'm aware that I might be the first person who can't see that this organisation has come into contact with. And so that's quite a responsibility in one way, but it's also an opportunity.
OK, that's a good positive note on which to end. Denise Lee, Kelly Barton, Richard Lane, thank you all very much indeed. And now we want to hear your own experiences and what strategies you may have learned to ensure that no one is taking advantage of you. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338 or go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. And just quickly before we go, last week we mentioned that we have 2 upcoming repeats of our documentary 50/50 Vision. Well, we now only have 1, but that will be on September the 1st at 6 minutes past 6 in the morning. Set your alarm. That's all from me, Peter Wight, and producer Beth Hemmings. Goodbye.
Hello, this is the Scaffolding and Skips News, week commencing the 23rd of August 2024. Newport area, August Chip Shop 2 to 3 St Thomas's Square, Andrew Ross 28 Holyrood Street, 71 to 74 Crocker Street, Morthouse Court, Crocker Street, 96 High Street, 12 St James Street, 95 High Street, 1 Holyrood Street, 35 High Street, H. Samuel Jewellers, 18 Crocker Street, 30 High Street, Carisbrooke. Newport area Skips, 68 Mayfield Drive, The Surgery, 16 West Street.
Ryde area, pavement outside 29 to 30 Cross Street, 60 Union Street, 45 George Street, 116 High Street, 39 Nelson Street, 63 George Street, The Nail Guys, 64 High Street, St Leonard's, 1 Pier Road, Seaview, and 1 Forlam Road, Bembridge. And Ryde area Skips, 4 Wells Street and 51 Stane Road, Bembridge.
Ventnor area, 1 Sydenham House, Hanborough Road, Fire Station 19 South Street, 152 High Street. Ventnor area Skips, Ventnor Fire Street, 19 South, 31 Allotment Road, Knighton.
Shanklin area, 112 Regent Street. Sandown area, 7 Fitzroy Street.
Cowes area, 1 Beckford Road, 5 Granville Road. Cowes area Skips, 1 to 15 Mornington Road.
East Cowes area, 4A to 6A Clarence Road. East Cowes area Skips, 58 Grange Road. Totland area, Egan House, Broadway. And Freshwater area, Hill House, Queen's Road.